On behalf of all of us here at the New York Botanical Garden, I'd like to welcome you to this morning's memorial tribute to Gary Lincoff. My name is Charles Shivalevich, and I'm the director of the School of Professional Horticulture and program coordinator for the horticulture track of the Adult Education Ceremony and president of the Metro Board Group, an organization of horticulture professionals in the city. It was 3 weeks ago today at the Plaza Jewish Community Chapel that Gary's wife told those gathered that we were there to celebrate Gary's life, as that is what he would have wanted. So today we are gathered here not just to celebrate, but also to remember and to pay tribute to his life and his contributions to us all. It was on September 20th, 1976, that Gary taught his very first course for us here at the New York Botanical Garden. That course was Mushrooms in the Field. For the next 42 years, he taught over 350 courses to more than 4,000 students, making him probably one of the few non-NYBG employees, if not the only, instructor to have such an influence, teaching the most years, the most number of courses, to the most number of students. In addition to teaching various courses about mushrooms, he also took courses in botany, horticulture, horticultural therapy, and weed identification. His students here were those at the School of Professional Horticulture, those working towards a New York Botanical Garden Adult Education Certificate, to those seeking further professional development, and those just taking courses for personal enrichment. His influence was not just here at the New York Botanical Garden, but also extended to New York City Parks and Recreation trainees as part of our Parks Opportunity Program. To these parks trainees, he taught botany and was one of the most popular instructors in that program. He also knew how to keep his students interested, attentive with gusto and enthusiasm. A few years ago, I sat in on one of his Introduction to Plant Science courses, one class meeting, as part of my job. The subject that week was photosynthesis, and he was explaining photosynthesis on a chemical level, how carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are held together by bonds. Now, students taking this introductory course, for many of them, it's the first time they've ever had botany or first time they've had chemistry. And as he was explaining what chemical bonds are, he sensed that they didn't grasp this. So he mentioned to the classroom full of students, saying, for those of you into S&M, it's comparable to bondage. The entire room of students, including myself, perked up and paid full attention. And that was Gary the teacher. And Gary the occasional comic who knew how to inspire and to keep his students attentive to what he was saying. But Gary the person was even better. Joyful, upbeat, kind, positive, always willing to share. There was no pretense, just an unwavering and honest passion for learning and for sharing. As many of you know, Gary was a big fan of Shakespeare, and I'd like to close with this line from All's Well That Ends Well, that goes, "No legacy is so rich as honesty." May his legacy live on for all of us.
Hello, I'm Eugenia Boone. Last year at the Telluride Mushroom Festival, a large group of people did a Gary Lincoff flash mob. Old, young, men, women, even babies and dogs. They all donned field vests with a zillion pockets and safari hats. The only other person I can think of who has inspired a flash mob is Santa. That mob happened for two reasons. Gary was so influential that his look came to symbolize the citizen scientist. And the second reason is because of him, so many of us became citizen scientists ourselves. The members of the New York Mycological Society have for many decades claimed Gary, our lead scientist, as ours. He led us in walks regardless of weather. His New Year's Day forays were a great way to start the year, even though the only thing we ever found was sticks with fungi that looked like crusty vomit on them. But afterwards, he and the intrepid Irene would let us come over and have Irish coffee in front of their fireplace. But God forbid you toss the wrong stick in the fire, or Gary would yell, "Not that specimen, I haven't identified it yet." A walk with Gary in Central Park offered a constant monologue on the state of favorite trees, or how to handle a chance encounter with the birders. He was the keeper of the list of New York City mushrooms with around 1,000 identified species, but he always made us feel like our sad little brown mushrooms were just as important. He was our lecture coordinator, our banquet MC, our teacher. But the truth is, he wasn't just ours. Gary was arguably the hardest working man in mycology. He visited every mushroom club in the country, many, if not all, multiple times, and gave thousands of lectures. Indeed, when news of his death spread, folks from all over the world spoke up and claimed him. A great friend, a beautiful soul, a brilliant mind, and a consummate teacher. An honor to know him, blessed to know him, lucky to know him, grateful to know him. And over again, he inspired me. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that spending time in nature was the closest we could come to the divine. It was a uniquely American insight founded in the vast natural resources of our country. But Gary didn't have to go into the Grand Rockies or Virgin Adirondack forests to find this. He found it along the edges of parking lots, in trampled public parks, in the wells of city trees. He didn't need to see extravagant frontal fruiting bodies in order to get excited. Hand him a stick and he'd find something growing on it to swoon over. And this was Gary's great gift to us. He inspired us to see the divine in the humblest places and in the humblest of organisms. To inspire someone is to awaken them confidence, desire, and enthusiasm. Our fellow member, Ethan Crenson, said Gary was responsible for turning his curiosity into an obsession. And today, Ethan is passing that enthusiasm along. There are many other people doing the same. This is how a community of interests lives beyond any one individual. People come in and people go out, but the community stands. That's not to say communities don't have factions. They do. In the mushroom world, it's the PhDs versus the pickers for the pot, the taxonomy jocks versus the trippers. But in the parlance of sociology, an animator brings all these factions together, and Gary was that person for us. We lost in the same week Stephen Hawking, man of the sky, and Gary Lincoff, man of the earth. Where does that leave us? In my deep sorrow over Gary's death, I've returned numerous times to his Facebook page to read and reread the testimonials of the many people he mentored and inspired. I guess I needed to feel a little less alone. I imagine everyone else felt that way too, and then it hit me. There in his pages was the community, our community, a group of many thousands who look for the divine in our own backyards, who find salvation in nature, and who wanted to say to Gary, thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is a total ballgame. There are now a huge number of people, young people out there now studying mycology that could never have done it 30 years ago. It was still, there was nothing to do. So this is all new, and we're doing it, looking at medicinal mushrooms, looking at bioremediation, looking at the ecology, looking at all the kinds of things that are the interaction between us and mushrooms and between plants and the ecology of mushrooms. And that's like discovering a new world. When I first started hunting mushrooms, this was called Lincoff sulphureus. And we would ask, oh, why is it so white underneath when those are so yellow underneath? And they would say, because this is what it looks like here, and that's what it looks like there. That's the same thing. And we didn't know what to do with that. So we would say, oh, it's all like later or sulfurious. And then you're looking at this thing and I don't know what this is. And then you find something else. What is that? And suddenly the whole world is opening up to you. And you want to know what these things are. This has gone through lots of name changes. So Amanita Sicily is a name that came out once. Rod Tullis used that for a while. Now I think he's just reduced it to a number. This is one of the ones that you definitely want to sequence because it's not anything. I think it's nothing like they have in Europe. So it's a authentic American entity. I really like finding things that bring questions up, that puzzle me, that make me want to learn what the heck is this thing, or not just what is it, but what's it doing. And to be just to name mushrooms is, after a while, it gets sort of boring. Oh yeah, that's this, and that's this, and that's this, and that's that. But to know what these mushrooms are doing, that drives me. That keeps me thinking, like, every plant I see and every tree I see, I know that there are mushrooms totally involved in the health of these trees. And you don't see that. You don't see any of that. So if you know a few trees, you don't have to know that much. You can already predict what you're likely to be finding. So since there's a lot of eastern white pine around here, you know that there are going to be things growing with the white pine. And this is one of them. If you find this mushroom, you have white pine. If you, even if you don't see white pine, it's there. It means it might only be 4 inches high. It might be somewhere 20 feet away. It's sometimes hard to see, but mostly you see them under the white, near under white pine. And what do you call this mushroom? Swillus, the painted swillus. Swillus pictus, to the extent that, what did you accomplish in your lifetime, for example? If it's only that you wake people up to the total interconnection of all plants and mushrooms, that's enough. Because otherwise, I didn't grow up that way. Plants were plants, and mushrooms were mushrooms, and they were usually not even in the same sentence. And the botany departments didn't even study. You didn't study mushrooms. They were irrelevant. No one knew what to do with them. Almost everybody who eats mushrooms knows somebody who gets sick eating mushrooms that they love. And it doesn't matter what it is. I know people get sick from health, I know people get sick eating the ball-headed woods chicken mushroom doesn't agree with everyone. There are individuals who cannot tolerate certain mushrooms. And you tell them, eat it again. You grow up again. And let's try a third time without alcohol this time. At this point they think, what kind of idiot do you think I am? How many times do I have to throw up to eat you? What I really teach is why you should give up whatever job you have and just quit. Just stop now and devote the rest of your life to mushrooms. So if you do that, you will find a way to pay the bills. Just don't live a high life. Don't feel you need a big car. You don't need a second house. You don't even need a first house. You don't need anything. What you need is freedom. You need the free time. This is the old Thoreau stuff. You don't really need anything at all except what you can't give up, which is your freedom. And that's what I maintain.
see in the picture on the screen, Gary's holding a book written by Rick Carrigan, whose specialty was the genus Agaricus. And Rick had been working on this genus for about 35 years. And you can tell that Gary is really thrilled to be holding this book. And you can just imagine Gary saying this, finally someone wrote a book about this. And I sympathize with Gary because I don't understand Agaricus at all. Even though I've known the author for about 35 years. So Gary's appreciation and an acknowledgement for the science behind mycology is truly, truly great. In 2008, there was a foray, northeastern foray, at Kerhonkson, just up the road here. And I had just got a new camera. I wanted to practice taking pictures with it. It was one of these big, fancy 35mm digital single lens reflex things. And Gary had just happened to collect this bolete. We all know what it was. It was called Tylobolus eximius. And Gary was there, and I said, Gary, do you mind? Could I borrow that for a little while? I said, oh, please, take it away, take it away. So I did, and I practiced, and I made some very lousy pictures of the thing. But it was a mushroom that was described in 1873 by Charles Frost, a shoemaker in Brattleboro, Vermont. The name was wrong, so Charles Peck, over in Albany, he corrected the name, and we knew it as Tylobolus eximius. But some people didn't think that it belonged in that genus. Others had other scientists had different hypotheses. Well, I took that specimen that Gary collected, and I gave it to my colleagues that I was working with, and they extracted DNA from it. And when you have a big, just batch of DNA, which is about that much, and then you can sequence different parts of the genome. And over time, we managed to get 5 different genes out of that thing. And that's the most that species has ever had. So I told Gary, I said, hey, that thing you gave to me over there at Colorado, we've extracted DNA from him, we got all these sequences, and Gary said, looked at me, and you know how he does. Yep. And he said, what? Bolates have DNA? He was teasing him, and then he had that grin like he has there. Yeah, okay, fine. So, Gary, I just want you to know that you, besides your contributions to citizen science and mycology, you've also contributed greatly to the science, the real science, because that specimen is now, in my opinion, the icon in the gene sequence world for that species described by the shoemaker, Charles Frost. Thanks, Gary.
Fortunately, I don't have to bend over here. Hi, everyone. I'm Noah Lincoff, Gary's son, and I wanted to share some words with all of you today. So, first of all, when Dad's father died, Dad was insistent that it be treated only as a celebration of a life well lived. So our plan is to take cues from that, at least as best we can. I know that Dad wouldn't want anyone sitting here sad. If anything, he'd like the idea that we all got together and found inspiration from him and this event to find more meaning in our own lives. So you've all heard at this point about Dad's love for nature and his ability to find and help others find all the beauty in our world. Indeed, asking Dad how he was doing or how his day had been often really meant, how is Central Park doing? And would result in long descriptions of the witch hazel or crocus or mushrooms that he had seen that day. And of course, you all know his passion for mycology. But he was also my dad, and that's the Gary that hasn't been described yet, and that's the one that can really only come from me. So, to put it flatly, he was pretty much the world's best and most caring father from the minute I was born. Anyone who's seen the thousands upon thousands of photos of me that chronicle my early childhood, organized by year in binders, knows how thankful I am that social social media did not exist. You may have heard that he was a huge world traveler. What you may not have heard is that when I was a small child, he once waited for 6 hours in the only little office in Burma that would let him make an international phone call just so that he could sing me happy birthday. And in that time, he also taught everyone in the office how to sing happy birthday. He also read bedtime stories to me every night when I was young. Fairy tales, Greek myths, and even occasionally his Audubon mushroom field guide. He had a weekly lunch routine with his brother Bennett for most of my life, and as I understand it, he would often start each of those lunches by telling Bennett exactly how many days old I was. And we're pretty confident that up until the end, he could have answered on the spot my age and days. He got interested and involved in just about everything I was involved in growing up. Chess team tournaments, baseball, high school PTA, you name it. I'm told all his friends, colleagues, and students had to hear endlessly about whatever movies or TV shows we were watching at that time. And I've had so many people tell me how glad they were when I grew beyond kiddie movies. They didn't have to hear endless analyses and deeper meaning that Ted described them. He coached Little League and summer travel teams. And I know that, I think I was pretty good at baseball, but when Dad started coaching, I got an awful lot more playing time. And because I loved it, when I was little, Dad would take me to conferences, festivals, and he would organize baseball games for everyone that was there, which is, of course, not why anyone was there. He would find parking lots, fields, just because I loved him. He would get everyone else enthused, because that's just the kind of person that he was. I was sharing a funny story with our rabbi when we were in her office to discuss Dad's life. That the strongest previous memory I had in that office was 15 years ago with our former rabbi, when I was sharing her my first draft of my bar mitzvah speech. And I want to be clear that the speech that I ended up giving was really good, I think, and something that could only come from me. But she took one look at that first draft and goes, "No, we have a problem. This is your father speaking, and it's not his bar mitzvah." We're not totally sure why Dad took it upon himself to write the first draft of my bar mitzvah speech. And it never happened again. But he did take a forever backseat, proofreading role for basically every other paper or anything I ever wrote, up through college and beyond, really up until this speech. This being the first thing I've written that he hasn't read. It was just part of my writing process that he would take a read when I was done and let me know his thoughts. And I think he liked it more, especially as my writing improved. He also made sure that those in his community that I did know were like family to me, even after it was long clear that I didn't necessarily share the same passion for mycology. I grew up going out every year with him and Mom to see all the folks in Colorado that he started the Mushroom Festival with, and I so look forward to those trips to him and to see everyone. He was so good at bringing me, and really everyone, into the fold, no matter their level of interest in anything we had planned for the given day, whether it was a mushroom hunt or a baseball game that he organized in the parking lot. And, yeah. And of course, when we were there, he really brought everyone into every conversation. He didn't like seeing people not engaged, and he would do whatever he could really to bring people into conversations. When we were in Costa Rica a little over a year ago, the tour guides had never met anyone quite like Dad. After one night on a nature walk, the tour guide asked for Dad's number and then texted us incessantly the next day just wanting to hang out with us. He kept stressing that it would be free of charge. He just wanted to learn. The next tour guide had pretty much finalized plans to come visit us in New York City by the end of the tour. Dad was just so excited to share his passions with whoever and anyone that wanted to learn, or anyone that really just wanted to be around anything he was doing. And I think that's something we can all learn from. I've never seen someone who was so sweet and approachable about anything. And not only that, but the way that he would bring everyone into conversations, and I think that's part of where his love for getting large groups to talk about bad TV shows that I liked came from, which would sometimes embarrass me as only a dad could. But if he ever embarrassed me, it was for caring too much, which is really nothing to ever be embarrassed about. When we became friends on social media, and most of you know how active he was on social media, I remember asking if he really needed to comment on every single photo I put up, which is a lot. And he put such impressive work into this. When I was in Japan, he was Google translating jokes into Japanese, writing jokes that largely got lost in translation. And it was a game, and I had to translate them, contact him. And even then, I knew in the back of my mind that there might be a day when I would wish those comments were still coming through, or that he was still downloading my photos and posting them on his own Facebook, just to make sure that everybody saw where I was and what I was doing. And now, of course, I see how amazing it was that, as busy as he was, that he was able to keep up with me in such an interactive way and really be there and be proud of literally everything that I did. And not to mention how grateful I am that I've been back in the city since living in the Midwest for about 5 years, and he really was a regular part of my life. I mean, we saw each other a couple times a week, lunch, dinner. Sometimes those dinners involved mushrooms in every course, sometimes not. But he really was a great presence in my life, and I'm really very thankful for that. And hopefully it's coming through in this event how larger than life he was. To me, and to I think many in this room, he meant so much to so many people. The kind of impact he was able to have is truly inspiring. And I think whatever one's interests and passions are, whether it's mycology or anything else, I know there's so much inspiration to gather from my father and the way he lived his life, and the way he approached his relationships and those most important to him. And I think that's the message or legacy he'd be happiest with me imparting, and the one that will make his eventual grandchildren as proud as it does me and our family. Thank you.
Well, we go out and we collect all the different kinds of mushrooms that are out there to be found. And we study them, we try to understand them, and the ones that are edible, some of us cook and eat.
Right. We've been harvesting puffballs on my farm. Some of them are this big,
Yeah.
and yet they don't taste very good to me. They're not a terribly tasty mushroom.
Chemtrails carry themselves, whereas some of these other mushrooms, you have to help them along.
Oh, okay.
And so with giant puffballs, I recommend panko breadcrumbs as a way of dredging them in a batter and then frying them.
Oh, okay.
Really good.
And they're good for you?
And they are.
Oh, good. Well, let's talk about the mushroom hunt, because many of us want to do that, and many of us see other people doing it, and
Right.
we're a little hesitant because of the nature of poisonous mushrooms.
Right. Well, one of the things that we like doing is going out into the woods. It's sort of like a treasure hunt. And the idea is